Что, всем привет.
Welcome. Hello, everybody.
Спасибо, что проснулись.
Thank you for waking up. Well,
На самом деле совсем не банальный, то есть там не будет...
the presentation won't have common knowledge things, how to use methods, lines, and things like that, but it's going to be about internals, but very understandable, at least in the beginning. So, while you're still alive, let's move on. Well, this is a short slide about me for the last 2 years. Why a line? Because I've been working with a line, and there's a lot of things have been realized in Stroka, and for other types I have no ideas. About dicts and set, the only thing that I've learned about them is that the set became order in 3.11. In 3.10 it wasn't. And about line, there's a lot of things.
Все будет на последней 3.14 альфе.
Everything's going to be on 3.14 alpha, and beta was published at the moment of presentation preparation. Okay, let's move on.
Ну, сначала база.
Okay, the basics in the beginning. What we have about Unicode standard and codings. Well, Unicode standard, many heard about it, that it exists, and every symbol has its number. It's not necessarily representation bytes, it's just a number. And it's called code point. And usually when code point is written, they don't write in hex or 0x, but U+, which means it's a code point. So I will write U+, and it's going to be understandable to you that it is. And in hex, it's convenient to write because 2 numbers in hex, it's 1 byte, which means 4 numbers, 2 bytes, etc. Easy. And the number of symbols in the Unicode standard, I will tell you immediately, it's defined by limitations of one of the coding, UTF-16. It's too far away to 1,155,000 in the later standard, so it will take a lot of time to fit it in. The standard consists of 2 parts. One part is symbol set, universal character set. They came from ISO standard, but they started syncing with it early in 92, at the second year as a standard. Unicode standard came to appearance. There are actually 2 standards, but we can think that it's the one. And they have 3 codings, you've heard about them, and 2 of them have byte. LE, little ending, B, it's big ending. Maybe these words are telling you something. However, bytes in different order. UTF-8, it's not up to date, but I will tell you that UTF-32 is the same UCS4. These are synonyms of UTF-16. These are not synonym of UCS2. In UTF-16, you can put any Unicode symbol, including 4-byte one. So UCS2, it's 2-byte one. It's not a full set. That's why it's a sub-unit, and UCS1, it's lesser. It's like UAS, 128 symbols. And this is something that you can call UTF-8, and you can call anything. And there's 1st April option, old coding that was not included in the standard. And sometimes they say that Unicode, but they mean UTF-8, but it's not always true. And then we're going to look why it's not always true. Well, this is a brief story. I've told you that syncing of 92, the first symbols which are not fitting 2 bytes have been created in 2001, and in 90s everything was fitting into 2 bytes. So in Java there's only 2 bytes, and in many other places, Windows, by the way, still there. But somewhere in the year 2008, there was a break-even point when UTF-8 became a little bit more popular than other codings. And it was 40% from all the websites. Right now it's majority. So it's logical that everybody has to use UTF-8. Well, we'll see.
Ну, тут немножко такой душной теории про то, что там есть какие-то плоскости.
Well, it's a theory that there are some planes, and each plane there is a certain set of symbols, and actually there are not 17 of them, but approximately 7, and the rest of them are not certain but reserved. Honestly speaking, you should know only one thing, that there is a basic multilingual planes, UCS2, 2-byte one, and everything else, non-BMP. This is something that more than 2 bytes. That's it. Basically, that's enough for the basics.
Итак, как в Python,
Okay, how in the Python, in the pure Python, how can you discover code point? We have a symbol,
в хексе лучше
character, and in hex, code point is a 41F.
2 байта он занимает.
3 numbers, it's 2 bytes. It means it should take 2 bytes. But English P, it's 1 byte, 70 in hex.
Кроме функции ordinal, ну,
And to ordinal function, ordinal, that's the full name of it. There's a black verse or whatever it's called, which you can give code point, and it will spit out the character. And cherry, I've met it in my practice, and you will see this cherry.
понятно, в 2 байта не помещается. Там вот 5.
It doesn't fit 2 bytes, it has 5 numbers.
Интересно,
And what is interesting, Windows console was able to print it, to type it, but it's not so surprising because Windows can take Unicode symbol, any Unicode symbol, not only 2 bytes, but if you use a right button of the and copy from a buffer exchange, there will be 2 question marks, not always, and we're going to speak about it a little bit later. So somewhere it's UTF-16 in Windows and somewhere it's UCS2, unfortunately. But if you're going to look at something separately, 2.7 Python, in 2.7 Python, it was not real Unicode. It says that maximal character for Fs, that's it. 2 bytes, that's it.
Код был 5.2.
Even though Unicode was 5.2.
Как я это узнал, какая версия Unicode была?
How did I learn it and what version of Unicode was in the Python 2.7? We have Unicode data and it has Unicode version. Here it is. In the last 3.14, the fresh one, standard from the last year, autumn. And in 2.7 there was 5.2, which also had more than 2 bytes characters. And in Python they didn't have it.
Ну и про кодировки еще. Я уже
And
сказал,
about
что есть порядок
encodings, I've told you that there is a set bytes.
обязательный.
UTF-16, UTF-32, it's mandatory. How can we determine them? How can we encode it? And for the UTF-8, it's optional, but still it can be written. And in some cases, for the files, for some files, it's mandatory, this byte order mark.
И вот если мы в Python, например, заинкодим,
And if in Python you will encode empty line, you will see that Python UTF-8 doesn't mark it by the byte order. You can save time, place. And for UTF-16, UTF-32, welcome. But if you need it for some reason, then there's artificial encoding, additional one, which byte order mark adds it. UTF-8 signature, bomb signature. Yeah, that's how it's translated.
вот, ну,
Well,
там говорить особо нечего.
about UTF-32, I shouldn't speak about it. What? Set of 4-byte characters for Windows fixing. But UTF-16 is much more interesting.
Завязано в Unicode.
And many things are connected to it in the Unicode. It's a double byte encoding, but it's not a fixed length, but variable length, which means if a 4-byte symbol character, then it means we need 2 surrogates, surrogate pair, which represent 1
Говоря, если мы вот
character. But if the second screenshot, this one,
посадим первый срок,
will be just the first half and the second half of the surrogate pair, you are not going to have the symbol that you want to get.
даже больше скажу, строка по факту будет невалидна.
And the line will not be valid.
Потом посмотрим, да?
But how can we detect it? We will look at it. So how can you make invalid line in Python? That's how it is. And the only way that I have utilized and discovered in my experience surrogate pair, you can put it into the incorrect line and you can have a special passage.
Ошибок он сделал, но тем не менее.
As the handler of errors, you can do it, but this surrogate pair can be with a normal cherry.
Перед докладом.
And cake was eaten before the presentation.
Вот тут, собственно, диапазоны
And ranges are here
разных символов. Вот простые символы.
for different characters, simple characters, and halves of surrogate pairs. And there's also private use, but this is not something that you think about. But if you agree, then in principle, this is something that you've been thinking about. Depends on how you agree about it.
Суррогатные пары поговорим поподробнее.
About surrogate pairs, I will speak about them in more details. Let's say 1/2 will be delivered to it. And we see that it has created a line. But if you will try to encode UTF-16 into it, and you remember UTF-16 can be encoded any valid Unicode line. But it's not valid because that's why it says surrogate. No, I don't accept it. Not half, not 2 halves.
Мы видели раньше, если мы
As we could see before, if we will not specify surrogate passage separately.
похоже на то, что
So, generally speaking, it looks like, yes, you could interpret it as a bug, but on the other side, you can validate it in such a way, or UTF-8
без
can be
разницы.
encoded. Doesn't matter which of
Ну, такое, в
UTFs.
общем.
Well,
И гарантии
that's how it is.
корректности у вас нету, получается.
And you don't have a guarantee for correctness of the line. If you have a line, maybe it's not valid.
Это веду.
Just remember.
Ну, а по поводу частного
Well,
использования, мы
about the private use,
в общем, частное
I've checked it.
использование это не 40
Private use, it's not a
это
surrogate
обычные
pair.
символы, просто
It's regular characters,
всё как бы.
regular full characters. That's it. Not bug.
Просто он не может напечататься, потому что
It just cannot be printed because Python doesn't know what kind of a symbol it is. It's uncertain. But it's regular.
И напоследок про кодировки.
And finally, about encodings, UTF-8 encoding, it's a single byte, and it has characters of variable length 1, 2, 3, 4 bytes. Technically, you could even have 5, 6, but
В стандарте, по-моему,
we still have agreed in the standard it should be defined, but it's not certain
4 байт не надо.
that more than 4 bytes shouldn't be there.
Например, в частном случае
And for example, in the private case, if it's an ASCII line in UTF-8,
каждый символ 1 байт, и получается
every character is 1 byte, then the length in code points is the length in bytes. And from ASCII, it's checked simply. The length in bytes equal to length in endpoints, then it's ASCII. That's it.
ну и
And
должна быть самой компактной. на самом деле,
UTF-8 should be the most compact one, but it's not always like that. For example, it says in Chinese, hello world. Well, Chinese people, it's the world of people, and something is being created, some piece of meat has been, if you will encode it into UTF-8, every symbol takes 3 bytes.
2 байта.
In UTF-16, 2 bytes.
Длина должна быть 8
The length, but the length should be 8, but due to the fact that we have 2 bytes
то это, собственно,
for the
байт остальных
order of
символов,
bytes,
2 это.
it's 8 bytes, the remaining characters, and the rest is bomb.
Ну, ладно, вы скажете, ну,
Well, okay, you can say, you've been giving us a theory about Unicode, encoding, but what about Python? Can you tell us about
тут
the
я могу
Python?
сказать, что
So I can tell you that all normal
готовили в майские праздники.
speakers have been preparing during the May holidays all the presentations, but I've been working.
Мне говорят, ладно,
Well,
культиватором
they
нечестно.
are telling me, okay, cultivator, it's not honest. I've been working only half a day. Okay, let's dig deeper and longer.
Вот возьмем, например,
Here it is.
строку
Let's take a line.
7, да, вот, если
Hello,
мы
everybody.
8, она там
If we will encode it into UTF-8, it takes certain unknown bytes, but we can measure the length of this line and the length in code points or in characters. Yeah, it's better to say in code points than characters. You understand? And if you will encode it in bytes, then it happens that UTF-8 is the most compact one. And if you will ask why UTF-32 is not be used,
он
should not be
много
used.
памяти
Well,
занимает, как бы, зачем?
look how much memory it takes. Why?
Ну, хочется узнать, ладно, в байте
And also, I would like to find out, well, you can encode into bytes and you will find out in bytes, but in a line, how much? And how it's stored in memory, how much it takes, how can you look at it, how can you see that? Maybe, no way. But if you want to, if you really want to, okay, let's look at it. For example, we have getSizeOf
зовет там слот метод
function. It calls slot method sizeOf, which is available on any inbuilt type, and the line is also knows how to report its size. An empty line, it's ASCII line,
байт. Ну, то есть
41
начальная исишная структура,
memory.
наверное,
So it's some
а потом
initial
будем добавлять по
IC
одному
structure,
байту,
then we will
и
add
по одному
1 byte each, and then it grows by 1 byte. So internally, it's not UTF-16 because otherwise it would grow by 2 bytes. As, for example, it was done in Java, C#, JavaScript, they still use 2 bytes.
поддерживаются иногда.
Sometimes surrogate pairs are supported, sometimes not. Depends.
Ну ладно, давайте засунем не ASCII строки.
Okay, let's take not ASCII lines and let's look at
Смотрим, уже у нас
by byte symbols, and we see the initial structure should be 58 bytes. If we will add to the empty line, it's going to be 60.
там прям внутри что-то поменялось.
This is all. So inside something has changed, and initial structure has changed by its size, something very interesting. But 2 bytes are added as it has to. Okay, let's see the mixture. For example, in the beginning we have dual byte symbols. We should add 1 byte
Добавляется всё равно 2
F and space, but 2 bytes are added. If it would be UTF-8, they would add 1 byte, so it's not UTF-8.
Ну,
8 as well. Okay, you can say, I'm not going to take any more of your time. Honestly speaking, it's adaptive representation, and it still is like that. Depending on which symbols, which characters are available in the line, and how can we define that? For example, we go through the line and we define the maximum quote point, max chart, it's called here. For those of you who don't know or forgot C, just in case, I will remind you that union in the structure means that all these pointers, they are in the same memory, in one set of memory. And depending on the representation, you can interpret it as UCACS1, UCS2, UCS4, and point, period point, star. And flags are stored in a first substructure. All this. And single byte representation can be used 11 to 56 symbols and ASCII only 127. Logical, more dense usage of single byte representation. So it's going to be looking like that. And then this representation has been created in the Python 3.3 15 years ago. And in the Python 3.3, they've done a lot to make it convenient to port from 2.7 to the Python number 3, because in the beginning, not everything was beautiful with porting. And prefix E has been returned and many other things. And after that, after 3.3, 3.4, they started moving to the Python number 3 more actively. But it took a lot, everybody remembers that, and out of significant. F lines have been added in 3.6 and in 3.12, they have been improved completely, they became, they applied in more places, and they have been properly defined in grammar. If you know what I'm speaking about, you know. And in 3.14 beta 0, they have involved new lines, T lines. It's like F, but instead of F, you write T. And you don't have immediate formatting. You can make a delayed formatting. And they do have a certain hate about this feature. But its meaning is that delayed formatting, so that we will be able to check that input that is coming to us, if it's from untrusted source, we could verify it, that it can be formatted, because it might have SQL injection or something like that. But they have discovered a problem with a security concatenation, but in the next beta it's going to be fixed, and they are pulling this in the code. They have checked and fixed it. Well, nothing ever interesting about methods, but when I've been writing about method format, and Nikita Sobolev said, oh yeah, I'm going to check it. But honestly speaking, for 3.14, if you will assemble Snow-GIL with settings, the method format, it's thread safe, because they have added critical section. But if you will assemble it with GIL, the critical section is not going to be there. And with a certain option of switching the threads, it may be not thread safe, but you have to check it. And this is out of surprising discoveries, and it was written documentation. Read documentation, it's very interesting. And the rest, it's, you know, small things. Some minor improvements, but the line is very conservative type. Well, and for example, there is non-consistency available between positional and keyword arguments. Some methods, some arguments can be the keywords, and some of them, none of them can be a keyword. So in theory, this could be improved, but it's like that, as we call it, potential bug of low priority. Well, and what else is available except for the line? There's a regular statements, and we can have a separate presentation about them. And there's model string, which has a set of symbols, which are numbers, ASCII symbols. There's a punctuation and some other characters. Out of interesting things, they have analogy of method title, which is called function cup words, because title doesn't work as you expected. After the apostrophe, the S letter increases and makes the uppercase. But cup words is looking at a more better definition of the word, and S is not making it bigger. But also title has isTitle method, which checks that this is a title, and cup words does not have this isCup words. And ideally, we just want to realize it. So please take this idea.
Те уровни там easy, medium.
This is easy medium idea. And I also have a couple of classes like formatter is used in the format method in percent compilation.
И у нее там есть парочку C-шных
And it has a couple of C functions which in C submodule underline string is available. So this is all realistically used, but you just don't know about that.
Ну, давайте посмотрим, а где у нас это реализация.
Okay, let's look at where this realization is located because we are closer to the C code.
Там просто я так
Please don't worry. It's just overview.
вот файлик unicode object.c.
And even the file object Unicode object with the word Unicode, because in Python 2.7 the type is called Unicode, it has not been transformed into the object, and this is the biggest C file in Python. It takes so many lines, 16700, a lot.
И там, соответственно, есть и структуры вот эти.
And of course, it has structures for these three representations and all the methods,
Модуль подчеркивания string.
and it has this underline string mode is inbuilt in there, even though it's small. And there are two different iterators.
Что у нас для ASCII
If you'll create iterators, you will say that for ASCII lines, there are separate type of iterator. And for the second one are two. Two is enough, not three.
И это еще не все. Есть еще...
And that's not it. There's also after-generated file that processes argy-quargy, args and quarks, and you need to look at the self-reading clinic in order to equalize args and quarks for all the methods, and you should look into this file and understand how it generated. We're not going to look at it, no time. And then implementation of a specific method is being called air-split, and implementation is being called out of the head Object-C file.
Ну и это еще не все. Есть
And that's not it.
автогенерированных файлов.
We have a lot of other auto-generated files which are generated not by a single script, by at least by two. Like Unicode data,
Файлы из стандарта Unicode.
which takes from Unicode standard and transform them in a header where they have tables, how to transform line into lowercase, uppercase, the characters, and depending from the character and the endpoint, it takes from the spreadsheet whatever it needs.
И там для всех почти методов вот так.
And it works for all the methods like that. And we also have global objects and utilization of not only a line, but being more particular, statical cached lines. And we're going to speak about them a little bit later. Please don't think about it right now.
Очень много файлов.
So there's a lot of files. Big type.
Давайте вернемся пока еще к стандарту.
Okay, let's go back to the Unicode standard. We have not finished with it.
Кроме символов обычных есть
In
еще
addition to regular symbols, there are so-called combined methods, underlines, caps,
там даже еще некоторые
and other thing. And some of them,
там вот филологи знают, что в некоторых
labels, philologists know that in some languages they have different emphasis. We have only one acute emphasis. And what's interesting, that every combining label has its own code point. It goes as a separate symbol, separate character.
Давайте посмотрим вот у этой.
So let's look at this particular line. What's going to be the length in characters? Raise your hand, those who think it's 4.
Чувствовали подвох. А кто за 5?
You see the trick. Who thinks it's 5?
Не очень много, но ладно.
Not many.
На самом деле больше вариантов-то и нет.
Okay, I'm not going to take your time. There's no more options. It's 5.
Мы даже видели, вот почему. Вот видите,
And we have seen why. You see, there's no space,
то есть он
but
что-то
cursor
почувствовал,
blinks
консоль
on
почувствовала.
the right. It feels something. Console felt something.
И действительно, если мы заэнкодим в UTF-8, видим,
And if you will encode it into UTF-8, you will see that E letter is regular. But for me, this
поинтом фактически идет.
comma it goes with a separate code point. But you can make 4.
Букву Ё по-другому, да? Да.
If you will write this your differently, and for this case with colon, thanks to Petrov and during the podcast, we have discussed this case.
Вот давайте потренируемся, так сказать, на ежиках. Вот у нас есть четырехзначный ежик, есть, значит, пятизначный.
We have 4-bit hedgehog, 5-bit hedgehog.
Очевидно, они не равны. И чё,
They are not
как нам
equal.
сравнивать их вообще?
And how can we
Оказывается, в стандарте Unicode
compare them? But in the Unicode standard, there is a thing,
называется она
it's
нормализация.
defined in the standard. It's called normalization.
И нам теперь еще останется только решить,
So we have to decide which of these hedgehogs is normal. Not just a question.
Чтобы сделать ежиков нормальными,
In order to make those hedgehogs regular ones, we have a Unicode data and normalize function,
алгоритмов нормализации.
and it figures out normalization algorithms. There are 4 of them described, and they're all realized, and you have to specify them, obviously. So hedgehogs are not equal, but if you normalize them, they will become equal. Okay,
Посмотрим, какой из них нормальный.
let's see which one of them is okay. The first algorithm of normalization NFT gives us that hedgehog with eyes on the right is a normal one. Our hedgehogs are the best hedgehogs in the world. But if we'll take another algorithm of normalization, then another 4-bit hedgehog will become normal. Normality depends from the point of view and from the algorithm of normalization.
Еще не все нормально.
However, not everything is normal. If we will try to take index and the first character will be returned without the column, it's a 5-bit hedgehog, then for the second symbol, whether it could put a column, but it couldn't print the closing parentheses, square parentheses. But if you flip it over as we like to do it, then it moves to another letter, the first letter in the word eternity.
У нас фактически
So basically speaking,
не учитывается тот факт, что у нас
they don't take into consideration the fact that 2 encode points can encode 1 character. There is no common sense. It's missing.
Ну, ладно.
Well, okay. We have figured it out about
Чит-шит напоминалка про
hedgehogs.
дефолтные кодировки, и они там есть
There are default encodings.
даже чуть больше, но Legacy мы в счет не берем. Вот sysstdout, stdr у нас тоже имеют свою кодировку. Вот у меня, например, она UTF-8. Но если мы бы запустили
stdout also has its own encoding.
потом бы консоль приоттачили,
For me, it is
у нас бы использовалась
UTF-8.
кодировка из модуля locale.
With the console attached, the encoding will come from the attached module. Yes, I have the Russian locale installed.
Все остальное
You got me.
для чего используется? Конечно же,
I blew my cover, but it's clear why it is used. It is recommended
будет такая,
to specify encoding in the clear. If not specified, it will be one of the
ну и
encodings listed. There is a whole list.
требует, например, функции
Even rough
кодировку явно.
in the open function requires that the encoding be specified explicitly. But it's best to remind you, I think you're not tired enough or not awake enough.
Runtime и парсер.
Let's get down to a runtime and a parser. Yes, the guts, the nitty-gritty details. There are cached strings in the runtime, ones I mentioned earlier.
Самые распространенные.
Even 3 types of them that I found. The first and the most popular one. There is a similar thing for int.
Ключевые слова, например, все пустая строка.
There are keywords, an empty string, 256 single byte strings, and lots of embedded names. These are cached. And there is no link counter. The garbage collector doesn't touch them.
В качестве указателей на функции передаются, которые чистят, да?
And null points are relayed as
Потому что они выделены на стеке, на колл-стеке с C-шным рантаймом.
to functions.
Да? Каким, ну,
It is the C runtime compiled by Python,
или еще каким
so to say VCC, or any other compiler out there.
чистить, они сами при завершении
No need to clean them up.
при выходе.
Once the interpreter terminates, they will be freed up on their own. Even though they're in the runtime, they're made for IST path optimization, so that we can speed up the process of converting source code into bytecode. The second one is less frequent. This is just internal strings, not static. They're freed up, but not dynamically. They can be in various sub-interpreters, and they may vary across various sub-interpreters. This feature is not enabled by default, but if you enable it, you can use it.
Самый редкий вид — это
And the third, the least frequent, is mortal. It has GC, garbage collector. They can be freed up in the process. And before becoming immortal, it first becomes mortal, then immortal. This is the sequence. Mortal, then immortal.
строки требуют
But mortal strings,
интерпретер log, GIL, и
they require global interpreter log, GIL,
пока они отключены, то есть
then
вида нет.
they are freed up. It's not available yet in Node.jl, but probably in the future this feature will be implemented, a critical section will be added. These calls in the C code, you can see them in around 15 places, but normally these are constants in bytecode, some embedded attributes like 2 underscores file, 2 underscores, and something like that. Since the idea was to optimize the parser, let's take a look at the parsing. We seem to have a parser. It's supposed to be separate from the runtime, but it is not. It does use the runtime heavily, and runtime is in the libpython, in this dynamic library. And the most useful thing is strings. It would be convenient to split them, but you cannot just take them and split them. You cannot just split libpython into separate modules. There are a number of obstacles to that. And we'll discuss these in part. It is a PEP level idea. It still requires justification and feasibility. Without wrapper, we need to have C functions separately and the Py object separately, and call them from AST parser without calling the runtime at all. But this is not sufficient. But it is even partially implemented. At the beginning of the file, you can specify the encoding to tell the AST parser, please make sure you pass this according to this encoding. Let's take a look at the codecs. In stringlib, we have codex.h, but it's a pretty small one, and built-in codecs in Object-C. It's around 4.5K strings, out of which codecs account for 3,000.29, 8.3,000. There is a wrapper for built-in codecs for CJK, Chinese, Japanese, Korean languages. And you can register your own codec. Such modules do exist. There are non-text encodings written in pure Python. This is one of the bottlenecks or pitfalls. But you cannot put byte-to-byte encodings in parsers. But virtually all, it's around 115 encodings, and most of them are text-based. On the other hand, the latest codec was added in 2016. It's been 9 years since then. The code is pretty simple, Python code. One could convert that with a simple script into C code. That would be pretty easy to implement technically, but there is another detail. We should take a look at the community, since this is an open source product. Andrew Izotov, thank you for the link. By the way, I would like to thank Mikhail Yefimov for the above link. This is an article on using scripts. This is an article by Victor Stena to go through the first 5,000 project on PEP. This is useful for any feature overall. Even without these scripts, I still haven't figured these out. I'm sorry. I just googled that magic codec example. It shows how can you specify your own encoding, and it changes the Python script behavior completely. For other examples, please refer to search engines. We don't have the time to discuss these. Again, if it is not acceptable to remove custom codecs from the C parser, we need to make some research whether the C part could be used separately, plus whether it could be extended via Python codecs exclusively. And depending on what is possible, what is not, it will be either smaller or larger. And for PEPs, there is a dedicated repository, but this is a more challenging task. This is a next-level task. We have plenty of strings. AST parser stores strings in UTF-8 using the normal type char asterisk. By the way, the bytecode, or rather the file representation of bytecode, it is stored in UTF-8 strings exclusively, constants, attributes, etc. But the bytecode in the memory, code object, it is stored in the normal adaptive representation, not the way it is written in the file. Well, seemingly, you could convert that into UTF-8. Yes, indeed, there is such an idea. It was suggested by Mark Shannon himself 1 year ago, and there is a prototype for a C structure. But this is a long-term vision. Since we have the news that says that Microsoft no longer supports the faster CPython and hired 3 Python core developers, including Mark Shannon, by the way. So this plan may be, my experience, a schedule slippage even further to the right. But this idea is supported by the community. This is the sad news, if you haven't heard about that. On regular expressions, yes, they can be hit as well. For UTF-8, there is one stopper. It is of variable length. You cannot just use an index and hit a specific memory. And it is normally a linear memory usage, not a single operation. It raises questions whether it's good or not. But for some, including Chinese hieroglyph characters, the size is 1.5 times larger. But for others, it will be even more compact, on the contrary. But being compact, probably it's a good thing, because the data will fit better in cache. That speeds up performance on CPU. So it requires some research and study so that we can compare these implementations. And since this touches upon performance and speed, let's take a look at the potential optimizations in string. Strings in Python is strictly sequential. It's pretty efficient, but the implementation does not use the vector extension of modern CPUs at all. They never got down to it. But that could have great use cases. I highlight the 2 largest libraries that can process string vectorization. Stringzilla, what makes it good? It has wrappers. You can have replace the str class with Zilla str class. It is reported to be pretty fast. Half of the string methods are implemented, the other half is not implemented, but it has additional features. In the new version of Stringzilla, it will feature fast hashing, which could speed up something for a string hash function, at the same time speeding up dictionaries. But there is this SIMDF library. It has its own advantages. The SIMDUTF supports RISC files. RISC-V. It's more production-ready. I cannot say it is used in large projects, Stringzilla. It's a younger product, but still very promising. For the SIMDUTF, we can talk about that in the Q&A session, but it doesn't have bindings for Python. Probably, therefore, it has less stars. It has no Python bindings at all. It has lots of useful features. One thing, they share a disadvantage, the pluses, because they wouldn't accept code in C++. It is C code. It has 9 external dependencies, and they wouldn't let in further dependencies. So option 1 is ruled out, so it has to be rewritten in C proper. More workload, but still the progress carries on. There is another problem. There are few benchmarks. The ML people suggest that there are tokenizers for various datasets. They say this is a hyped-up thing, but it takes ML people who would be able to write quality benchmarks pretty close to real life. And one of the datasets is available in SIMDUTF. So actually there is room for research. You can even get a degree with your graduation project being that. At good universities and high-performing students, they're told about the KMP algorithm, not Morris-Pratt algorithm. And there is an even improved one, Boyer-Moore and Boyer-Moore Horspool, BMH. Please check out this first QR code to refer to details regarding BM and BMH. The second one is about the comparison, the standard MM function. Why should we use MM? Because 0 bytes are possible in strings. Strings in Python are not null terminated. Therefore, we must use mem. Were implemented. But Python supports more platforms. And for rfind, Boyer-Moore is required. So I've pitched in plenty of ideas for 4 PEPs and some minor things I haven't mentioned yet. We can use something from other languages. We can take this to the corridors and discuss this privately. On course, join our gardening chat. By the way, the picture of rotary hoe is mine. I own it. This is my picture. And you will see an image of mine wearing the same checked t-shirt. So stay in touch. Stay tuned for updates. That's it. Q&A now. Yes. Now, it's time to come up to the microphone. Make no mistake and ask your question. Yeah, we have the bravest one. Hello. Thank you for presentation. I have 2 questions. Question 1. Why strings are not null terminated in Python? If half of the Python is C-based, answer. The answer is because it is so. Okay. You can specify any byte in a string /x/x code point. You can say type /0. Thank you. Question number 2. After the slide with the rotary hoe, that gardening slide, you had an example of encoding words in UTF-8. I noticed that in the byte representation, B parenthesis quotation marks, and I opened up my laptop. I put a string half in English, half in Russian, and I ran encoding then. And the byte representation, a chunk of the English language was it copied without bytes, and the Russian letters I inserted in the middle, they turned into bytes. And the tail with exclamation mark remained the same. Why so? Because this is byte representation. Why half of it remained in characters, in symbols, in letters? Thank you. That's a very good question. Probably to say what is written in bytes. Even hex editors, if it contains ASCII symbols, they're written as symbols, not as bytes. Probably this is the reason why. Okay, I got it. But there is no clear way to tell. Thank you very much. Thank you. Awesome. An awesome question. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for presentation. Will we ever see anything without normalization? Without normalization of various things. And these various things like umlaut, will there be just one symbol that will work? Any ideas? Answer. Probably it's already there in the Unicode standard. I'm not associated with the Unicode consortium, and the way they operate is unknown to me, but probably this is already part of the standard. We just need to learn, we need to train Python, teach Python to work with modified markers. This is what I'm asking about. It will be implemented when it is implemented. There are no issues, not to mention full requests. You see, he's also unhappy that it's not there. But he will never say that in public. This is my message. Here is an idea. Please come and help.
Это прямо засчитывается.
There are contributions.
Вась, привет. Спасибо за отличный
Hello,
доклад. Вообще.
thank you very much for your awesome presentation. You're fire.
Пожалуйста, сделай микрошажок.
I'm so thrilled. Could you please make a small step forward, closer to the mic? 3 questions. Okay, shoot. How many standard ways to format strings are there?
Строки.
How many standard ways are there for string formatting?
Interpolation вот этот вот.
This is for the interpolation percentage, the format method, the fstrings method.
T-строки в 3.14 будут.
И вроде
In
слышно.
3.14, T strings will appear. Concatenation also can be used, but this is not the best.
Вот еще темплейт, да. Ну,
Давайте зачетку.
And templates as well. Okay.
Так вот, собственно, ты говорил, что
You
я
got
так понял, именно метод
a maxima cum laude degree for that.
в билдах. В смысле, в гил билдах. Ты говоришь, что еще все еще не
You mentioned JL builds. And what about f-strings?
Они thread-сейвы?
Are they trade safe?
вопрос для исследования.
This is also a good question for research.
Третье, ты
Thank you.
вот, типа сделать библиотеку для строк без PyObject. А объяснишь, зачем?
Making a library without PyObject. What is the motivation behind that?
Вот посмотреть,
If you take a look
либо
that this is just to remove, to split AST from the runtime. Why so? Why would we have libAST without Python? Because it's the Python AST.
Например, если мы хотим реализовать
How to put it? If we want to implement a compiler for the Python language on another ecosystem like LLM,
Уметь разбирать Python независимо.
so we need to be able to decompose
ну, на плюсах, соответственно,
Python, to break it down,
хочет, ну, исследовать.
like Mouse, but
Я,
on
кстати, в прошлом году как раз рассказывал
in C.
в секции Languages and Tools,
By the way,
как сделать
at the Languages and SN Tools last year,
перегнать в LLVM мои.
I made a contribution on ML
Спасибо. Просто
interpreters.
это было. Сейчас все.
Thank you. It wasn't quite clear, but now it's absolutely crystal clear. Thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck. Awesome. Further questions?
Прекрасно. Пожалуйста.
Привет, спасибо за доклад.
Hi.
Очень
Thank you for
интересно,
contribution.
понятно. И проблема
Very interesting,
не в докладе.
sometimes hard to understand, but the problem is not with the presenter
Из предыдущего.
this time.
А что же
This is a follow-up question to the previous one.
что на самом
So
деле
now we have revealed the secret that no one in the Python community
Ну, исследованием Trade Safety, я думаю, занимаются, тем более, что вот после
makes research on trade safety. I mean, in a centralized fashion. I mean, I believe someone does, but not in centralized
сообщество не настолько
fashion.
большое и не нас-
But
ну,
the community is still not that big.
спонсируют, но не настолько сильно,
It is
что
being
прям
sponsored in partially, but they don't have the capacity, don't have the staff to do everything. And for the JL builds, these require lots of resources, especially due to the layoffs in Microsoft. They are understaffed.
возможность, как бы, да, но, конечно, понятно, надо
This is also an opportunity.
там работают,
We
учатся.
still have to take the time to do it. I see that everyone has to work or study or has to do some gardening with a motorized rotary hoe. Some do some volunteering, clearing up forests. I would like to touch upon the thread safety and the safety of Python. Probably this is a language where this is not quite needed. The bytecode of Python and the data PyYC, it's very easy to decompile back. It seems to be a script-based language which can be applied. But the safety and the low level and the multi-threading, there are languages like C and C++.
Проблема атомарности даже есть при байткоде. Ну, есть же классический пример.
So there is an issue of
когда мы можем
atomic nature with the bytecode as well. With double we can say plus equals,
Нет exception, но при этом нулевой элемент
and we'll throw out an exception. At the same time it will modify the zero element.
две байткод команды, короче, и они
There are 2 bytecode commands, and when switching threads,
меняться, короче.
Вы просто
They may
говорили
swap.
про критические ставки.
It's just that you mentioned critical stakes, but
наверное, так и есть.
Ну,
it can be implemented on C with OpenMP. The critical sections, in 3.14 they have dedicated critical sections in this guild build.
Владимир,
Okay, thank you.
сейчас
Vladimir,
вопрос, и потом выбираем.
this is the final question, then we award the prize for best answer, for best question, sorry.
Хорошо.
Did I say Vasily?
Дали
Okay, Mikhail.
всем Алексеям книжки. Да.
then
тоже нервничаю. Извините,
every person
Что за доклад? У меня вопрос есть. А почему в
with name Alexei gets a book? I'm sorry, I'm feeling so thrilled. I have a question.
Ну, S.
When do you use S-based formatting? Why cannot you use
Стринги
F strings? Why using F strings is not recommended in logs?
работает нормально, именно в
Normally it works fine in the code, but in logs it's slower than alternative options suggested via the percentage sign S. That's an interesting question.
Прям вот про логинг я не скажу сейчас.
I believe
Отвечает
I cannot
Никита Соболев.
respond to the question logging. By the way, it is Nikita Sobolev answering. When you do logging, here is the deal. If you do the formatting via an F string, the formatting is algorithm, but some logging levels, for instance, you say logging.warning, and then you specify a warning. At the same time, at the current level, warning is not used. Only error is being logged. All the things that have a warning, they will not be displayed. And these, if these are not displayed, they require no formatting.
Да.
Спасибо.
Спасибо,
Это,
что
кстати,
Thank you,
шикарный
thank you.
прием, когда
By the way, that's an awesome
самая страшная часть — это вопросы и
technique.
ответы. И вот можно всю
The
свою
most
команду брать с собой,
challenging
сажать на
part
первый
of a
ряд, и
public
если что-то
presentation is
вопросы
Q&A. You can have your whole team seated in front row and you make them answer questions. You have pre-canned answers. But this is not fair. This is like
Махните рукой все, кто задавали вопросы, пожалуйста. Кто
working with a
получается
motorized rotary hoe rather than using a shovel.
За вопрос, который подал
Who is the winner for best question? I believe the book goes to Mikhail Yefimov
иди к нам.
for suggesting ideas for further improvement.
Очень хороший тоже. Но книжка только
But the first few questions were pretty good as well, but we only have one book. There is steep stairs over there.
Большие аплодисменты. Смотри, лужа. Аплодируй.
Watch your step.
Спасибо всем, ребят, спасибо.
Да, а сейчас
Let's hear it
суперупражнение.
for our
Значит, ты
speaker.
должен из
Now
этих
we
книжек
have a
у тебя
super
право первой ночи,
exercise.
выбрать
Out of
самое
these
главное.
books,
А я
you
тем
have the
временем,
right to select the most important one.
Очень понравилось.
By the way, I bought this book for junior developers at our company. They liked it.
вывести
They loved
слайд
it.
Community Day, потому что сегодня вечером,
не
пока
знаю.
они бубнят,
Pure
сегодня
Python.
вечером бомбическая активность с нетворком,
Tonight,
с стендапом.
we have a networking opportunity, a stand-up
Вот, все, есть, да?
show.
Ну, тут ты нового ничего не узнаешь уже. Это как...
Okay, you made your choice.
Да, всё.
It's so fine. It's okay.
Вот,
Спасибо.
отлично. Отличный доклад, отличный вопрос.
Awesome. An awesome presentation. Awesome question. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Here is a cam. Wave to the camera.
книгу, но, может быть, в следующий раз.
Those of
И
you
смотри,
following
тебе
our
несут
event online, you could
спальный
have
мешок, чтобы тебе на работе
taken part in the competition for this book, but probably
Спасибо за
next time
доклад.
lucky.
Отлично.
Thank you for your presentation. That was awesome. And this goes to you. Thank you.